Churches don't show up where people have money. They show up where people don't. And somehow, that's exactly where the prosperity gospel thrives. In rich cities or neighborhoods, you hardly ever find a church. It's almost like they're afraid to exist there. Maybe it's simply because there is no business in those areas. Lately, it feels like religion is turning into a business, and honestly, nothing makes more money than selling hope. When you walk through neighborhoods like this, you see people who are trying their best, who want a better life for their families, who just want to stop worrying about money every single day. Prosperity pastors know this very well. They understand how desperate people are for change, and instead of helping many of them, use that desperation as an opportunity. Because when a pastor starts thinking like a businessman, people's struggle stop being something to care about and start becoming a source of profit. Let's take a look at this African city called the Maputo, not because it's unique, but because it perfectly represents a pattern we see all around the world. When I walked through the wealthiest neighborhood, something immediately stood out. Churches were almost impossible to find. They exist, but they're rare. This is one of the richest neighborhoods in the city. As you can see, there isn't a single church around. And that made me ask you one simple question. Why is that in places where people have money, churches barely appear, but in poor neighborhoods, they grow like wildfire? So, it's not about faith. It's not about God. It's business. And maybe the reason churches don't show up here is simple. There is no hope to sell in a place like this. People in these wealthy neighborhoods don't need a miracle to survive the months. They don't need a pastor promising them financial breakthroughs, magical blessing, or instant success. Because here, life already works. And when life works, desperation disappears. Without desperation, there is no market for false prophets. As soon as I stepped into the poorest neighborhood of Maputo, everything changed. The noise got louder, the streets got tighter, and suddenly churches were everywhere. On one single street, I counted more churches than stores, more pastors than teachers, and more promises than actual opportunities. It's almost impossible to walk 5 minutes here without finding another place promising a miracle. Another pastor telling people that their breakthrough is just one prayer or one donation away. And I start to understand why these churches grow fastest exactly in the places where life is the hardest. Because desperation creates demand. And where there is demand, someone will always appear to supply. Lately, many churches have been making people feel guilty just because they don't have money to donate. Look, this is church's improvised altar, the place where pastor delivers his message to the congregation. Look, this is how it's look like, man. Everything is improvised just to pray, man. People here wake up early, work all the day, struggle to survive, and still believe that tomorrow can be better, that one day God will lift them out of misery. Hope is the only thing they can afford, and that makes it priceless. Pastors know this, they study it, because selling hope to the poor is one of the most profitable business in the world. Some churches here are tiny, some are huge, but almost all of them promise the same thing. If you give, God will give you back. How does a neighborhood stay poor while the pastors inside it keep getting richer? Scandals inside churches aren't rare anymore. They are happening so often, people are starting to think it's normal. But it's not normal. It's terrifying. One of the most shocking cases happened recently in South Africa. A pastor was caught on video in an intimate situation with a young woman inside the church. When the video went viral, the pressure and the humiliation became so overwhelming that the young woman even attempted to take her own life. And it doesn't stop there. Meet Pastor B.M. Samuel. One of his followers is sitting quietly, maybe just resting for a second. Out of nowhere, the pastor slaps him across the face, all because he wasn't praying for his mother at that exact moment.
Aqui é para dormir?
Here is a place for you to sleep.
É a tua casa aqui?
Is it your house?
Here is the crazy part. The pastor then says in front of the entire church, "You people abuse me too much." Think about that. The one hitting someone claims his victim. A person who is supposed to guide and protect instead instills fear. People don't question it, they don't resist, they just accept it. This is what happens when authority goes unchecked. Fear replaces faith, control replaces care, and the trust becomes silence. This incident didn't just expose completely unacceptable behavior from a religious leader. It showed how the lack of accountability inside this institution can destroy real lives. And it raises a serious question. Who is protecting who? In many communities, religious leaders hold absolute power, but almost no oversight. And that's exactly what opens the door for abuse, manipulation, and scandals that keep happening again and again without consequences. And here is the truth. Scandals like this don't happen because people are evil. They happen because the system allows them to happen. In many places, churches operate with zero transparency. If this were a hospital, a school, or even a small business, this would be rules, inspections, consequences. But churches, they can take your money, break your trust, and walk away clean, protected by silence and fear. And that's why the scandals keep repeating, not because God failed, but because humans are allowed to abuse power without accountability. Maybe it's time to start asking the hard questions because right now, the people who need protection the most, the poor, the desperate, the ones searching for hope, are the ones being hurt. After spending so much time inside these churches, something became painfully clear to me. The people who fall on the ground, the ones who manifest demons, it's always the same kind of person. Vulnerable, struggling, and desperate. But you never see wealthy women, businessmen, or people from high society suddenly possessed and rolling on the floor. And that one alone should make us question what's really happening. Inside many of these churches, questioning anything is strictly forbidden. If you ask any honest question, you are immediately treated like someone who's against God, as if curiosity itself is a sin, as if using your brain somehow makes you any enemy. But churches weren't always like this. They used to talk about spirituality, about kindness, about loving your neighbor, about becoming a better human being, not about chasing money, not about blessing for sale, and not about turning faith into a business model. So, as I walk away from these churches today, I can't stop thinking about one thing. If these churches actually had to pay taxes and could take tithes from poor families, would they be spread across the city like this? I'm not here to attack anyone or something like that. I'm here to say one thing. Faith should never be a business. And if we lose the truth, we lose everything.